Maya Miller had exactly 7 minutes left before her life changed forever, and she had no idea. The Grand Meridian Gallery hummed with the low, careful murmur of people who counted their fortunes in 8 figures. Chandeliers dripped light across marble floors. Waiters glided between guests like shadows in white gloves. And somewhere near the back, hidden behind a velvet rope and a wall of towering security men, sat the guest of honor. Nobody said his name out loud. They didn't have to. Everyone in the room already knew. Maya adjusted the strap of her borrowed black dress for the 10th time that hour. The fabric was tight across her hips, snug across her chest, and she could feel her cheeks burning every time she caught someone glancing at her curves like she didn't belong. She squared her shoulders anyway. Her mother had always told her that a lifted chin was worth more than a designer label. "First night?" a passing waiter whispered as he slid past her with a tray. "That obvious," Maya whispered back. "You look like someone who actually reads the price tags." She laughed under her breath. It was the first real smile she'd had all day. Her tray felt heavy in her hands, 6 flutes of champagne balanced in a careful ring. The bubbles hissed and climbed the sides of each glass. She'd practiced carrying trays at the diner back home in Brooklyn, but pancake plates and champagne flutes were not the same thing. She could feel her wrist trembling. "Just get through tonight," she told herself. "1 shift, $200, then rent is covered." Her phone buzzed in the small pocket of her apron. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Maya sighed and set the tray down on a side table by a marble pillar. She stepped behind the pillar, pulled out the phone, and saw her uncle's name lighting up the screen for the 4th time in an hour. Uncle Ray only ever called when something was wrong. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Uncle Ray, I'm at work. I can't—" "Maya, baby, listen to me. Listen. I did something stupid." Her stomach dropped. "What did you do?" "I borrowed some money, just to keep the bakery running. Your aunt's medicine, the oven repair, all of it. But the guy I borrowed from, he's not the friendly type." "Uncle Ray, how much?" "I used your name on the paperwork." Every sound in the gallery seemed to fade. The clink of glasses, the soft violin somewhere in the corner, even her own heartbeat. "You did what?" "Just a signature, baby. Just as a backup name. I'll pay it back. I swear on your mama's grave, I'll pay every dollar." "How much, Uncle Ray?" There was a long pause. "Enough to lose the bakery if I miss the payment." Maya's hand shook so hard the phone almost slipped. She swallowed the lump climbing up her throat and forced her voice steady. "We'll talk when I'm home. Don't do anything else stupid until then." She hung up before he could answer. For a long second, she just stood there, forehead pressed against the cold marble pillar, eyes squeezed shut. The bakery was all she had left of her mother. Every Sunday morning smell, every flour-dusted memory, all of it lived inside those walls. And her uncle, sweet, foolish, panicked Uncle Ray, had put it on a chopping block, with her name attached to the blade. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand and stepped out from behind the pillar. She reached for the tray. She should have looked down first. The velvet stanchion rope, the one meant to keep the crowd away from the guest of honor, had been shifted slightly by a passing waiter. It now sat exactly 1 inch inside the path Maya's foot was about to take. Her ankle caught it. The world went slow. She felt the tray tip. She saw 6 champagne flutes rise into the air like a small, sparkling flock of birds. She heard her own gasp as her balance shifted forward, 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 until she was falling straight into the roped-off section, into the man everyone in New York whispered about, but nobody dared approach. The flutes hit his chest one by one, like tiny bells being struck. The champagne cascaded down the front of his suit in a slow, sparkling river. Then, silence. Not quiet, not hushed. Silence. The kind of silence that had a weight to it, like a hand pressed over the mouth of the whole room. Maya raised her eyes. He was seated in a high-backed leather chair, One ankle crossed over the other knee, and he had not moved a single muscle. His suit, which she guessed cost more than her yearly rent, was soaked from collar to belt. His dark hair was neatly combed back. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. And his eyes, grey, still and cold as river stones in winter, were fixed on her face. Marcus Sterling. She knew the name because everybody knew the name. Head of Sterling Enterprises, owner of half the buildings between here and the river. The kind of man whose driver opened doors and whose enemies were rumored to disappear before dessert. A security man near the wall took a step forward. Marcus raised one finger. The security man froze. "Sir," Maya said. Her voice came out shakier than she wanted. She took a breath and tried again. "Sir, I'm sorry. That was my fault. Send me the bill for the suit. I'll pay every cent." She didn't look away. She didn't lower her chin. She stood there, dripping with someone else's champagne, in a borrowed dress, on the worst night of her life, and she looked him straight in the eye. Something flickered in Marcus's expression, just for a heartbeat. Something that might have been surprise, or memory, or both. He reached slowly into his breast pocket, pulled out a small black card, and held it out between two fingers. "My office," he said. His voice was low and even, like a stone dropped into deep water. 8 in the morning, sharp. Maya took the card. Her fingers brushed his for less than a second. Her skin remembered it for much longer. "Wear something you can work in," Marcus added, standing up in one smooth motion, the ruined suit forgotten. "You just became my new logistics assistant. You'll be paying for this suit yourself, Miss..." "Miller," she said. "Maya Miller." "Miss Miller." He tilted his head, and the smallest ghost of something almost warm passed over his face. "Try not to be late." He walked past her, guards trailing behind, and left the gallery in a wave of ruined silk and quiet power. Maya stood alone in the middle of the room, champagne pooling at her feet, the black card burning against her palm. She had no idea her real trouble hadn't even started yet. Maya stood outside Sterling Enterprise Tower at 7:43 in the morning, staring up at a building that seemed to swallow the sky. 52 floors of black glass, a revolving door made of brushed steel, 2 doormen in matching gray coats who had already looked her up and down twice. She smoothed the front of her only good blouse, tucked a loose curl behind her ear, and took a breath so deep it hurt her ribs. The card in her pocket felt heavier than it should have. She pushed through the revolving door. The lobby was quieter than a library. Her flat shoes made small, embarrassed sounds against the polished floor. A woman behind the reception desk lifted her head, glanced at Maya's outfit, and lifted one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Delivery entrance is on 47th Street. "I have an appointment," Maya said. She held out the black card. The woman's face changed. First the eyebrow came down, then her lips parted, then her fingers, which had been tapping a pen, went completely still. "Miss Miller?" "Yes?" "Take the private elevator, top floor. He's expecting you." The elevator ride felt longer than the whole subway trip in. Maya watched the floor numbers climb and tried to remember every promise she had made to herself last night. Keep your chin up, do the work, pay off the suit, get out. The doors slid open into a long hallway of dark wood and clean silence. Marcus was already standing there, waiting. He wore a fresh suit, charcoal gray this time, no champagne stains anywhere. His hands were folded behind his back. His eyes swept over her once, quick and unreadable. "You're 17 minutes early." "You said sharp." "So I did." He turned without another word and walked down the hallway. Maya followed. Her heart was beating so loud she was sure he could hear it. He led her into a room lined with filing cabinets and one long table stacked with binders. Thick binders, The kind that made her wrist ache just looking at them.
Shipping logs, Marcus said. 6 months, 42 international art transfers. I want every number cross-checked against the invoices. If anything looks strange, mark it and set it aside. Maya blinked at the pile.
All of this by when?
End of day.
Sir, this is a week of work for 3 people.
Then you had better start. He walked out and closed the door behind him.
Maya sat down slowly. She rolled up her sleeves. She opened the first binder. Numbers had always made sense to her. They were honest in a way people rarely were. Back in the bakery, she used to balance her mother's books between customer orders, tracking flour costs down to the last cent. Numbers didn't lie. Only the people writing them down did. She worked through the first binder in an hour, then the second. By the time she reached the 5th, she had a rhythm going, coffee cold beside her, curls falling loose across her forehead, pens scratching against a growing list of notes. Then she saw it. A shipment from Vienna, 6 paintings. The invoice said the insurance value was $1.2 million. The internal ledger said 1.4. The difference had been quietly split across 3 smaller line items, each one just small enough that a normal reader would slide right past. $200,000. Gone. Tucked into the seams of the paperwork like coins slipped between couch cushions. Maya sat back in her chair. She flipped through the pages again, slower this time. The same handwriting appeared on all 3 altered lines. She checked the signature on the approval page. D. Whitaker, Senior Manager. 12 years with the firm, according to the little stamp beneath the name. Maya's mouth went dry. This was not her business. She was a girl who owed a man a suit. She was supposed to check numbers, mark strange ones, and go home. That was all, nothing more. But her mother had raised her better than that. She closed the binder, tucked her notes under her arm, and walked out of the room. She found Marcus in his office, standing by the window with his back to the door, the city stretched out behind him, gray and endless. "Sir?" He didn't turn. "You're finished already?" "No, but I found something." That got him. He turned, slowly, and studied her face. She stepped forward and placed her notes on his desk. She walked him through it. The Vienna shipment, the 3 quiet line items, the signature that appeared on all of them. She kept her voice steady and her sentences short. She did not add opinions. She let the numbers speak. Marcus said nothing for a long time. He picked up her notes. He read them twice. He crossed to his desk, tapped a button on his phone, and spoke 3 words. "Bring me Whitaker." Then he set the phone down and looked at Maya again. "How long have you been in this building?" Maya glanced at the clock on his wall. 4 hours. 4 hours, he repeated. Something almost like a smile touched the corner of his mouth and vanished. "It took my auditors 6 months to miss what you found in 4 hours. I grew up counting flour sacks. Clearly a better school than mine." There was a knock at the door. A man in his 50s stepped inside, silver-haired, expensive watch, confident smile. The smile lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then he saw Maya's notes on the desk, and the color drained out of his face like water down a sink. Marcus turned toward him. "Mr. Whitaker, please explain the Vienna paperwork." Maya did not stay for the rest. Marcus gave her a small nod toward the door, and she slipped out into the hallway, hands trembling only after she was safely on the other side. She waited near the elevators for almost an hour before Marcus came to find her. He looked tired, older somehow, but calmer too, the way a storm looks after it has passed.
"Miss Miller."
"Yes, sir?"
"Your suit debt." He paused. "Consider it handled."
Her heart lifted. "Then I can go?"
"No." He held her eyes. "You start tomorrow at 7. There is an auction I need you at. Pack a bag." He walked past her toward the elevator. She stood there, notes clutched to her chest, and realized she had just been kept. The yacht was named Argent Tide, and it was longer than half the block Maya grew up on. She stood on the marina dock with her overnight bag clutched in both hands, staring up at 3 levels of white steel and dark tinted glass. Uniformed crew moved across the deck like clockwork. Somewhere above, a string quartet was already tuning. "Breathe," Marcus said beside her. "I am breathing." "You are holding your breath and pretending it counts." Maya let the air out slowly. He was right. She hated that he was right. He had picked her outfit himself. A deep, emerald dress, simple cut, expensive fabric, no logos anywhere. It fit her curves without squeezing them, and for the first time in her life, she was wearing something that seemed to have been made for her body instead of tolerated by it. When she had asked about the price, he had only said, "It comes out of my pocket, not yours." She hadn't argued. She hadn't known how. They walked up the gangway together. A small silver bell chimed as they crossed onto the deck, and a steward in white gloves announced their names. "Mr. Marcus Sterling, Miss Maya Miller." Heads turned. Maya felt every single one. The main salon glittered under warm lights, men in tailored jackets, women in silk that shimmered when they moved. Champagne, again, but this time Maya kept her hands behind her back. Marcus placed his palm lightly against the small of her back and guided her through the room. He introduced her to no one at first. He just walked, greeting people with short nods, letting her stand beside him like she belonged there. That lasted 12 minutes. A woman in a red gown drifted toward them, a thin glass in one hand, a thinner smile on her lips. 2 other guests followed at her elbow like small boats behind a bigger one. "Marcus, darling, you brought a guest." "Elena." "And who is this lovely creature?" Elena's eyes moved down Maya's dress and back up again. "Is she new to your circle?" "She works with me." "Works," Elena repeated, as though tasting the word. "How refreshing. Most of the girls here just marry into it." One of the men behind her laughed into his glass. Maya kept her chin lifted. She had promised herself she would not give these people the satisfaction of watching her shrink. Another voice joined in, an older broker with a thin silver mustache. "Sterling, tell us, what does she do exactly? Coordinate the flowers? Choose the napkin colors?" "She reviews shipping ledgers," Marcus said. "Ah," the broker chuckled. "So she counts things." "She found $200,000 my senior manager tried to hide." The laughter died. Elena's smile flickered, just for a moment, but Maya saw it. The broker cleared his throat. "Well, that's impressive for a first week." "First day," Marcus said. He said it flat, no emphasis, no pride in the voice, just the number, dropped into the middle of the group like a stone into still water. The silence that followed was louder than any of the words. Marcus turned his head slightly toward Elena. "I would rather have one clear-eyed woman at my side than a room full of people who inherited their opinions. Miss Miller sees what the rest of you miss. I would advise remembering that." Elena's mouth opened, then closed. She lifted her glass in a small, cool salute and drifted away without another word. The 2 men followed her like they had forgotten how to speak. Maya stared straight ahead. Her hands were trembling somewhere behind her back, but her face stayed calm. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "I did not do it for you," Marcus answered, just as quietly. "I did it because they needed to hear it." Then, after a pause, softer, "But mostly, I did it for you." She looked at him. He did not look back. He was already scanning the room for the next handshake, the next name, the next number to remember. But the tips of his ears had gone the faintest shade of pink. Maya bit the inside of her cheek to keep from smiling. The auction itself was smaller than she expected, only 12 pieces, but the numbers on the paddles made her dizzy. 900,000 for a small painting of a fruit bowl, 2 million for a bronze horse the size of a shoebox. Marcus barely bid. He watched the room instead. Every so often he would murmur something to Maya, and she would write it down in the small leather notebook he had handed her. Broker 3, second row, coughing before every bid. Nervous, bidding above his budget. Woman by the piano is a plant, driving prices up for the seller. The Rothwell piece is a fake. Look at the varnish under the light. Maya wrote it all. Her pen moved fast, her mind faster. She had never in her life felt this awake. Halfway through the night, a young woman near the bar caught Maya's eye and gave her a small, genuine smile. It was the first friendly face all evening. Maya smiled back before she could stop herself. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. "You made a friend." I made eye contact. "That is how it starts." She laughed, really laughed, and Marcus, for the first time since she had met him, smiled with his whole face. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but she saw it. She would remember it later. Near midnight, the auction ended. Guests spilled out onto the upper deck to watch the coast lights blink in the distance. Marcus led Maya to the railing, away from the crowd. The wind was cool, salt air, her curls lifted from her shoulders. "You did well tonight," he said. "I mostly just wrote things down." "You watched. That is harder than writing." She turned to look at him. The moonlight sharpened his profile, but softened his eyes. "Why are you being kind to me?" she asked. He was quiet for a long moment. "Because someone was once kind to me," he finally said, "and I never got to thank her." He did not explain. He did not have to. Maya felt something inside her chest shift, quietly and permanently, like a door opening in a room she had not known existed. The diner sat at the end of a wooden pier, half hidden in morning fog. It had one crooked sign, 4 small windows, and a name painted in fading blue letters. Sally's. Marcus opened the door for her. Maya stepped inside and almost laughed. After a night of chandeliers and silver forks, the smell of butter and burnt coffee felt like coming home. A woman in her 60s looked up from behind the counter. She wore a stained apron and a warm, tired smile. "Just 2?" "Just 2, Marcus said. She waved them toward a booth by the window, red vinyl seats patched in one corner with duct tape, a ketchup bottle with a crust around the cap, a single flower in a jelly jar. Maya slid in and ran her hand across the table like she was greeting an old friend. "You look pleased," Marcus said. "This is the first place I've been in 3 days where I don't feel like I'm about to break something expensive." He almost smiled. He picked up the menu instead. They ordered pancakes, both of them. Maya asked for extra butter. Marcus asked for black coffee and, after a pause, added, "The same as her." The woman behind the counter raised her eyebrows and disappeared into the kitchen. For a few minutes, they just sat. The fog outside was lifting slowly, turning the ocean from gray to silver. A gull landed on the railing beyond the window and stared at them like it was waiting for its share. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "You already are." "Last night, when you told them about the 200,000, why did you say it like that? Just flat, no pride." Marcus wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "Because pride makes people argue. Facts make them quiet." "That's a very cold answer." "It is an honest one." She studied him. He did not look away. "You're not as cold as people say you are," she said. "Yes, I am." He lifted the cup. "I have simply chosen, for the moment, to be warm to you." Her cheeks went hot. The pancakes arrived just in time to save her from having to answer. They were halfway through breakfast when her phone buzzed. Maya glanced down at the screen and felt her fork slow in her hand. Uncle Ray. She looked up. Marcus was watching her. "Family?" he asked. "Yes." "Take it." She slid out of the booth and stepped through the diner's side door onto the pier. The wooden boards creaked under her flats. The sea air hit her face cold and sharp. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Uncle Ray?" "Baby, are you sitting down?" "I'm standing on a pier. Just talk." His voice was shaking. She had never heard it shake like that before, not even at her mother's funeral. "They came to the bakery this morning. 3 of them, in suits.
They had papers.
Her stomach turned to stone. What papers?
The loan, baby. The one I told you about. They said if we don't pay by Friday, the bakery is theirs. They already have a deed prepared. Your name is on the top line.
Uncle Ray, who is they?
The name on the papers was Vance. Carter Vance.
Maya's hand went to the railing to steady herself. Say that name again?
Carter Vance. He runs some big finance company in Manhattan. Big office on Wall Street. Baby, I didn't know. I didn't know who he was. The man who set it up, he seemed friendly. He said the paperwork was nothing, just a signature.
How much, Uncle Ray? There was a long pause.
400,000.
She closed her eyes. She could hear her own blood in her ears. She could hear the gulls somewhere behind her. She could hear the ocean pushing against the pier posts. She could not hear her uncle's next words at all. He was still talking. She had stopped listening. Carter Vance. She had heard that name only twice before. Once from Elena, muttered like a curse. Once from Marcus, spoken in the elevator 2 days ago, right before he had told a security man to double the guards on the front doors. Vance was Marcus's rival. Not a business competitor, a rival. The kind of word men like Marcus used only when they meant something darker. And now, Vance was holding her family's bakery in one hand and her name in the other. Uncle Ray, she said, cutting him off, listen to me. Don't sign anything else. Don't answer the door. Don't talk to anyone in a suit. I'll fix this. How, baby? How are you going to? I said I'll fix it. She hung up. She stood on the pier with her eyes closed and her hand on the wooden rail. The wind tugged at her curls. A single tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it away with the back of her wrist and did not let a second one come. She walked back inside. Marcus was already watching the door. He read her face the moment she stepped through it. He set down his coffee cup and stood halfway. What is it? She slid back into the booth. Her hands were folded in her lap so he would not see them shake. Do you know a man named Carter Vance? Every trace of softness left Marcus's face. His shoulders drew back. His eyes went dark and still, the same way they had been the night she spilled champagne down his suit. Yes. He holds a $400 loan against my family's bakery. My uncle signed it. My name is on the paperwork as guarantor. Payment is due Friday. Marcus did not speak. He set his napkin down slowly. He folded it once. He folded it again. His jaw was tight enough to snap.
Miss Miller.
Yes?
Look at me.
She raised her eyes. His voice was quiet, steady, cold in a way she had never heard before, not even at the gallery. You are not going to lose your bakery. Not this week. Not any week. Do you understand me? She could only nod. He reached across the table and for one brief second covered her trembling hand with his own. Then he stood up. We are leaving. Now. The car ride to the Hudson Valley took 2 hours. For the first hour, neither of them spoke. Marcus made 3 phone calls in a low, clipped voice, using words like frozen accounts and asset trail and seal the file before noon. Maya sat with her forehead pressed against the cool window, watching the highway turn into trees, then hills, then long stone walls covered in ivy. When he finally set the phone down, she asked, Where are we going? Somewhere Vance cannot reach. She waited. My mother's house, he added, now mine. She looked at him. He was staring straight ahead at the road, but his jaw had softened just slightly, in a way she had not seen before. The estate came into view around a slow bend. It was not what she had expected. She had pictured marble columns, gold gates, a fountain the size of a swimming pool. What she saw instead was a long, low stone house tucked into a hillside, surrounded by wild gardens and old oak trees. A wooden porch wrapped around the front. A single black cat sat on the top step, blinking slowly at their arrival. That's Pepper, Marcus said, opening her door. She has lived here longer than I have owned the place. Do not try to pet her. She bites. Maya laughed under her breath. Noted. Pepper stared at her. Maya stared back. Pepper stood up, walked over, and rubbed her whole body against Maya's ankle. Marcus stopped walking.
"That has never happened before," he said. "In 8 years." "I have a way with difficult creatures." He glanced at her sideways. "Clearly." Inside, the house smelled of old wood and lavender. Bookshelves lined every wall. A long stone fireplace took up most of the main room, and a soft rug covered the floor in front of it. There was no marble anywhere, no gold, no cold glass, just warm colors, worn edges, and quiet. Maya turned in a slow circle. "This is your house." "It is." "It doesn't look like you." "It looks like her." He said it plainly. He did not explain. He led her down a hallway to the library. It was smaller than she expected. 3 walls of books, 1 wall of windows looking over a sloping lawn. He gestured for her to sit at the long oak table in the center. Then he set down a thick folder in front of her. "The loan documents. My people pulled them an hour ago." She opened the folder with careful hands. For the next hour, they worked through it together. Marcus explained the fine print in a calm, patient voice, tapping certain clauses, pointing out others. Maya asked questions. He answered every one without ever making her feel small. At one point, she pushed her hair back from her face and let out a slow breath. "Some of this doesn't add up. There are 2 signature pages. The second one is dated 3 days after the first. The interest rate changed between them." Marcus leaned closer. He looked at what she was pointing at. Then he looked at her. "You keep doing that," he said quietly. "Doing what?" "Finding things that other people paid to miss." She smiled a little. "Numbers don't lie. People do." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and stood with his back to her. "My mother used to say something almost exactly like that." Maya set the pen down. She did not push. She waited. Outside, the wind moved through the oaks. Pepper had followed them into the library and was now curled on a chair by the fire, watching Marcus with slow, blinking eyes. "She was a bookkeeper," Marcus said, "for a small hotel in Queens. She raised me alone on that salary." Maya folded her hands on the table. "She was a large woman," he went on, "full-figured, loud laugh, loved bright colors. People in this city can be cruel about that. She heard it her whole life. Waiters who looked past her, store clerks who followed her too closely, men who thought she should be grateful for any scrap of attention." Maya's throat tightened. "She never bent," Marcus said. "Not once. She used to tell me that a straight back costs nothing, and a lifted chin costs even less, but together they are worth more than any suit in any window." Maya pressed her lips together, hard. Her mother had said almost the same thing. Not those words, but the same idea, the same lesson, passed down like an heirloom from one strong woman to another. Marcus turned from the window. "When you stood in that gallery on Wednesday night, dripping in champagne, and looked me in the eye and offered to pay for the suit yourself, I saw her, standing right where you were standing, same chin, same eyes, same refusal to look away." He walked back to the table. He sat down across from her. "That is why I gave you the card, Miss Miller, not because I wanted to punish you, because I did not want to lose sight of you." Maya's hands were trembling now. She looked down at the folder to hide her face. A single tear landed on the edge of the top page. She wiped it away quickly with her sleeve. "She sounds like she was a good mother," she whispered. "She was the only good thing this city ever gave me." There was a long silence. Maya reached across the table. She placed her hand over his, the same way he had placed his over hers at the diner that morning. He did not pull away. He turned his hand over slowly, palm up, and let her fingers rest inside his. They sat like that for a long time. The fire crackled, Pepper purred. The oaks moved outside the window. Somewhere in that quiet, without either of them saying a word, the last wall between them came down and did not go back up. "Marcus," she said finally. It was the first time she had used his name. He looked at her. His eyes were softer than she had ever seen them. "Yes?" "Thank you." He nodded once. He did not let go of her hand. Maya woke up before sunrise. The estate was silent. Pepper was curled at the foot of her bed, one paw twitching in a dream. Outside her window, the sky was the color of an old bruise, blue turning slowly to pink. She sat up and stared at her hands in her lap for a long time. Marcus had told her he would handle it. He had promised. She believed him, but somewhere in the quiet of the night, another thought had settled into her chest and refused to leave. If Marcus fought Vance for her, this stopped being about a bakery in Brooklyn. It became a war, and wars between men like them did not end quietly. She had seen the way Marcus's jaw had tightened at the diner. She had heard the calls he made in the car. He would burn half the city down to protect her if she let him. She did not want him to burn anything. She was the one whose name was on those papers. She would be the one to walk into Vance's office and hand him the proof. She dressed quickly. Dark slacks, a cream blouse, the folder from the library tucked under her arm. She left a note on the kitchen counter that said only, "I need to do this myself. Trust me. M." She slipped out the back door before the house woke up. The train to the city took an hour and a half. She sat by the window with the folder pressed to her chest like a shield. Every stop, she talked herself through it again. Walk in, present the fraud, state the facts, numbers don't lie. He would have no legal footing. He would have to release her family. That was how sensible people ended these things. She almost believed it. Vance Financial took up the top 3 floors of a mirrored tower on Wall Street. The lobby was all white marble and silver leaf. It was beautiful in the way a knife blade was beautiful. The receptionist looked at her name on a clipboard and lifted the phone. "He'll see you now, Miss Miller. Straight up." Maya blinked. "He knows I'm coming?" The woman smiled with only her mouth. "Mr. Vance always knows." Carter Vance's office was the opposite of Marcus's. Where Marcus preferred dark wood and quiet, Vance had chosen white leather and glass. Every surface reflected something, even the floor. It felt less like an office and more like a display case. Vance himself stood by the window with his back to her when she walked in. He was tall, silver-haired, in a suit so pale it almost glowed. When he turned, she saw a face that had once been handsome and had learned, over many years, to be dangerous instead. "Miss Miller," he smiled. "Please, sit." She sat. She placed the folder on his desk. "I have proof that the loan against my family's bakery was signed under fraudulent conditions. My uncle used my name without consent. There are 2 signature pages with different dates. The interest rate was altered between them. Under state law, this contract is void." She kept her voice steady. Vance did not even glance at the folder. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands across his stomach, and studied her the way a man might study a rare coin someone had just placed in front of him. "Do you know how long I have been waiting for you to walk into this office, Miss Miller?" Her stomach cooled. "I don't understand." "No, you wouldn't." He tilted his head. "Your uncle did not stumble into my firm by accident. My people found him. My people offered him the loan. My people put your name on the second signature page." The floor seemed to tilt. "Why?" "Because you spilled champagne on Marcus Sterling 3 nights ago, and he has not let you out of his sight since." Maya's hand tightened around the arm of the chair. "I have watched Sterling for 15 years, Vance went on. He does not keep people. Not ever. Not one assistant, not one advisor, not one lover. He replaces them like shirts. And then, on Wednesday night, a girl in a borrowed dress spills a drink on him. And by Thursday morning, he has her in his tower. By Thursday night, he is defending her on a yacht in front of half the city. By Friday, he has taken her to his mother's house. Maya went cold. He knew where she had slept last night. You are not a coincidence, Miss Miller. You are the first crack in a wall I have been pushing against for a very long time. He smiled again. So no, I will not be cancelling this loan. Then what do you want? 2 things. He lifted one finger. First, the client list from Sterling Enterprises. Names, holdings, offshore accounts, all of it. Your position gives you access. My people can walk you through the export. Her mouth went dry. And second? A single meeting. You call him from this office. You tell him you have chosen to work with me instead. You tell him whatever you like, that I offered more money, that you were afraid, that you never cared for him. I do not require the truth. I require the words. He leaned forward. Do these 2 things, and your bakery is safe by lunchtime. Your uncle walks free. Your name is cleared. You will be a wealthy young woman by Monday. Maya sat very still. She thought of her mother's flour-dusted hands. She thought of Pepper curled on the library chair. She thought of Marcus's face when he had told her about a woman who kept her chin lifted no matter what the world said about her body. She stood up slowly. She picked up the folder off his desk. She looked Carter Vance in the eye. No. His smile flickered. Excuse me? You heard me. Her voice did not shake. Keep the bakery, keep the loan, keep whatever paper trick you think you have. I will not sell that man for you. Not for a building, not for a fortune, not for anything. She turned and walked to the door. Behind her, Vance's voice was quiet. You will regret this, Miss Miller. She did not turn around. I regret many things, she said. This will not be one of them. She stepped out and closed the door behind her. Maya made it 3 blocks from Vance's tower before her legs stopped working. She sat down on a low stone bench outside a closed flower shop and let her head fall into her hands. The folder was still tucked under her arm. Her whole body was shaking now that no one was watching. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. She stared at the screen. It buzzed again. And again. She counted 5 missed calls before she finally answered. Where are you? His voice was low, controlled, not angry, something worse than angry. I went to see Vance. A long silence. Maya. It was the first time he had used her first name. I'm okay, she said quickly. I said no. I turned him down. I have the folder. I'm on a bench near a flower shop. I don't know the street name. Do not move. Do you understand me? Do not move. Marcus. Stay on the bench. A car will be there in 4 minutes. The line went dead. The car arrived in 3. She had expected to be taken back to the estate, or to Sterling Tower, or anywhere quiet. Instead, the driver headed south, deeper into the city, and stopped at the mouth of a narrow alley between 2 brick buildings. There was no sign, no door number, just a single black door with a single small handle. Sir, we'll meet you inside, the driver said. Maya stepped out. The door opened before she reached it. A large man in a dark suit nodded her through. She walked down a short hallway, then down a staircase, and stepped into a room she had not known existed anywhere in Manhattan. It was called the Glass Lounge, and the name told the truth. Every wall was glass. Every table, every panel of the ceiling. Light passed through it in soft, golden ripples, so that the whole room looked as if it were floating underwater. Music played somewhere, low and slow. Every face in the room turned toward her when she walked in. She recognized some of them. The broker with the silver mustache from the yacht.
Elena in a black dress this time. Two men who had bid heavily on the fake Rothwell piece. There were maybe 40 people in the room. Every one of them was worth more than a small country.
And in the center of it all, standing at a raised table beside Marcus, was Carter Vance. He had gotten there before her, of course he had. Vance saw her first. His mouth curled into something that was not quite a smile. "Ah, Miss Miller. Come to reconsider?" Marcus turned. The moment his eyes found her, something in her chest steadied. He was calm. Fully calm. It was the deepest kind of calm, the kind that only lives in men who have already decided how the next hour will end. He held out one hand. She crossed the room and took it. The crowd rustled. Marcus did not let go. "Gentlemen, ladies." His voice was quiet, and yet somehow every corner of that glass room heard him. "You all know Mr. Vance. Most of you owe him something. A note, a favor, a quiet debt held over your head to keep you sitting where you sit tonight." Nobody spoke. "I am here to inform you that as of 40 minutes ago, that arrangement is finished." Vance's smile faltered. "Sterling, whatever you think you are." Marcus held up one finger. Vance stopped talking. Marcus turned to a slim woman in a gray suit who had been standing near the wall. She stepped forward and placed a leather folio on the glass table. She opened it. "Every debt held by Vance Financial in this city has been purchased," Marcus said. "Every note, every lien, every quiet piece of paper. As of this moment, the buyer is Sterling Holdings." A soft gasp moved through the crowd. "For those of you who owe Mr. Vance money," Marcus continued, "you now owe me. And I am, generally, a more patient creditor. My office will contact each of you next week to discuss reasonable terms." Elena set down her glass. Her face had gone white. The broker with the mustache actually sat down. Vance's hand tightened around his own drink. "You cannot possibly have the liquidity to—" "I did it in cash." Marcus's voice did not rise. It did not need to. "Every dollar, signed and cleared before I called your assistant to invite myself here tonight." The room was so quiet, Maya could hear the ice moving in someone's glass. Marcus turned his body a quarter step, just enough that Maya was fully at his side now, in view of the room. "There is one more debt in this stack." He glanced at the woman in gray. She lifted a single sheet of paper and placed it on top. "A $400,000 loan against a bakery in Brooklyn, signed under fraud. My legal team will void it in the morning." He turned his eyes back to Vance. "And any debt, past, present, or future, connected in any way to the Miller family or to Miss Maya Miller personally, now sits under my protection. Publicly, in front of every witness in this room." He paused. "Try to touch her again. Try to touch anyone she loves, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you cannot open a bank account in any country with a working phone line." Vance opened his mouth. No sound came out. Marcus turned to Maya. His whole face changed. The steel went out of it. He looked at her the way he had looked at her in the library, quietly, warmly, as if she were the only real thing in a room made entirely of glass. "Are you ready to go home?" She nodded. She could not speak. He tucked her hand into the crook of his arm. They walked out together. Behind them, the glass lounge stayed silent for a long time after the door closed. Carter Vance stood at the center of it, holding a drink he no longer remembered ordering, watching his own reflection break into 40 glass pieces around him. The Miller family bakery sat on a corner in Brooklyn where 3 streets met at odd angles. It had a green awning that had seen better years, a hand-painted sign in the window that read, "Miller and Daughters, since 1978. a row of old copper bells above the door that jingled every time someone stepped inside. Marcus stood on the sidewalk and looked up at it like he was studying a painting. "This is it?" "This is it," Maya said. "It is smaller than I imagined." "Most good things are." He tilted his head at her. "Is that another one of your mother's sayings?" "That one is mine." He smiled, actually smiled. Then he opened the door for her, and the bells sang above their heads. The smell hit her first. It always did. Warm butter and sugar and yeast. The smell of every morning of her past. She closed her eyes for 1 second and let it fill her lungs. When she opened them, her Uncle Ray was already coming out from behind the counter with flour on his hands and tears on his cheeks. He wrapped her in a hug so tight her feet left the floor.
"Baby, baby, baby, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." "I know, Uncle Ray, I know." They came again this morning. They were going to nail a paper to the door, and then a lawyer showed up, different suit. He said the loan was gone, just gone, like that. He pulled back and stared at her face. "What did you do?" "I didn't do it." Marcus was standing quietly by the door, hands folded in front of him, waiting to be noticed. Uncle Ray looked at him, then back at Maya, then at him again. "You must be him." "I am." Uncle Ray wiped his hands on his apron. He stared at the floor. He stared at the ceiling. Then he walked straight up to Marcus, and Maya braced herself, because her uncle was many things, but predictable was not one of them. He took Marcus's hand in both of his floury ones. "Thank you, from the bottom of a very stupid man's heart. Thank you." Marcus looked down at the flower on his sleeve. He did not seem to mind. "You are welcome, Mr. Miller. Call me Ray." "Ray." Uncle Ray turned toward the kitchen and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Carmen! Carmen, come out here! Maya is home, and she brought a man." Maya groaned and hid her face in her hands. Marcus, to her complete astonishment, laughed. Aunt Carmen came out of the kitchen with a wooden spoon in one hand and reading glasses pushed up on her head. She was a short, round woman with laugh lines carved deep around her eyes. She took one look at Marcus, one look at Maya, and one long, knowing look at their linked hands. "Sit down," she said. "Both of you. Now." "Aunt Carmen, we can't stay long. We have—" "Sit." They sat. Within 20 minutes, the small, round table by the window was covered in food. A plate of warm rolls straight from the oven, a pot of stew that had been simmering since morning, a bowl of yellow rice, a basket of biscuits, a pitcher of iced tea, a small dish of pickles that Aunt Carmen made herself every summer. Marcus stared at the table. Maya watched his face. He looked, for a moment, like a man who had walked into a museum by mistake and did not know how to behave in front of the paintings. "Mrs. Miller, this is far too much. Eat! I really eat, boy!" He picked up a roll. He tore it in half. Steam curled up from the middle. He took a bite. He closed his eyes. He chewed slowly. Maya, watching him, felt something tighten in her chest. She wondered when the last time was that a woman had put food in front of him and told him to eat. She wondered if there had ever been such a time at all, since his mother. He opened his eyes and looked at Aunt Carmen. "This is the best bread I have ever tasted in my life." Aunt Carmen beamed like the sun. "Have another." They stayed for 2 hours. At some point, Uncle Ray brought out an old photo album. Maya covered her face and begged him not to, but he opened it anyway, and Marcus leaned over the pages with the serious attention of a man reading a contract. Baby Maya covered in flour, 6-year-old Maya asleep in a breadbasket, 10-year-old Maya wearing a paper crown at the shop's 40th anniversary, 16-year-old Maya holding a tray of cookies and grinning with her whole face. Marcus paused at one photo,
A younger woman with Maya's eyes was standing behind the counter, laughing at something out of frame. "Your mother?" "Yes." He looked at the picture for a long moment. "She has your chin." "I have hers." He nodded slowly. He turned the page. Before they left, Marcus and Uncle Ray sat down at the table alone. Marcus opened a small leather folder and slid a single page across. "This is a restructuring plan, Ray. The loan is gone, but there is still a debt of trust. I would like you to work legally in my finance department, part-time alongside your work here. Basic bookkeeping, nothing complicated. You will be paid a fair wage, and a portion of that wage will go quietly toward the amount you originally borrowed, until you have honorably repaid it to yourself." Uncle Ray blinked. "To myself?" "To yourself, to your dignity, so that a year from now you can look Maya in the eye and know that you fixed what you broke. That is worth more than any signature I could ask you to sign." Uncle Ray's chin trembled. He nodded hard 3 times. "I'll do it. I swear on everything. I'll do it." They shook hands. At the door, Aunt Carmen wrapped Marcus in a hug he clearly did not know how to receive. He stood very still, arms half raised, uncertain. Then, slowly, he lowered them around her and hugged her back. When she let go, she patted his cheek with a flowery hand.
"You come back for Sunday supper, you hear me?"
"Yes, ma'am."
"Good boy." Outside on the sidewalk, Marcus walked in silence for almost a block. Then, without looking at Maya, he said, very quietly, "That is the first family meal I have eaten in 22 years." Maya slipped her hand into his. She did not answer. She did not need to. 5 nights after she had spilled champagne down the front of a stranger's suit, Maya Miller stood in front of her closet and did not know what to wear. Marcus had sent a car. He had sent a note. The note said only, "Meet me where it began. Wear the emerald dress." M. She stared at the dress hanging on the closet door. She thought about the girl who had walked into the Grand Meridian Gallery 5 nights ago in a borrowed black dress and a heart full of fear. That girl felt like someone she had met once, a long time ago, and remembered fondly. She put on the dress. She lifted her chin. She went downstairs to the car. The gallery was empty. She stepped through the front doors and stopped. The chandeliers were on. The marble floor was polished to a mirror, but the room that had been packed with hundreds of guests 5 nights ago was, tonight, completely still. No waiters, no security, no string quartet, just one man in a dark suit standing near the back staircase. Marcus. He held out a hand. "Upstairs." She walked to him. She took his hand. He led her up a private staircase she had not known existed, past a landing, past a door, up one more flight, until they came out onto a rooftop terrace that overlooked half the city. Maya stopped breathing for a moment. Manhattan spread out below them in 1,000 small lights. The river caught the moon along one edge. Somewhere far away, a boat sounded its horn. The rooftop itself had been set with a single small table for 2, a low glass lantern in the center, and a bottle of sparkling water resting in a silver bucket. She noticed the water. She smiled. "No champagne? I thought perhaps we had reached our lifetime limit." She laughed, really laughed. He watched her face when she did it, the way a man watches something rare land on his windowsill and does not want to move in case it flies away. He pulled out her chair. He sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "For what?" "For not telling you something on the second day, something you should have known." She tilted her head. "The suit," he said. "The debt for the suit. I cancelled it the morning after you found the $200,000. Before lunch, actually. There was never any debt to work off after that first day. Every hour you have spent with me since then has been a choice, not a payment." Maya set down her glass slowly. "You kept me thinking I owed you,"
Yes. For 4 days? Yes. Why? He looked at her for a long moment. Because I did not know how to ask you to stay, and I was afraid that if I told you the truth, you would leave, and I was not ready to lose you yet. She did not answer. She could not answer. Her throat had gone tight. He reached into his jacket and took out a small, folded paper. He set it on the table between them and slid it toward her with 2 fingers. She unfolded it. It was not a contract. It was not a legal document. It was a single handwritten line in slanted black ink. Chief Operations Partner, Sterling Enterprises, full authority, full trust. Yours if you want it. M. She stared at it. She looked up. Marcus. That is the offer for the business, he said. There is another offer, and it is separate, and you may accept one without the other, and no answer you give tonight will change the first offer in any way. He paused. His hands, she noticed, were not entirely steady. The second offer is that I would like, if you are willing, to spend the rest of my nights walking you home, however long we get, however far it goes, slowly, at whatever pace you set. But only if you want to. Because the truth is, I did not fall for a woman who spilled a drink on me. I fell for a woman who did not lower her chin afterward, and I have not stopped falling since. Maya's eyes filled. She looked away, out at the city, so she could catch her breath. Below them, somewhere on the street, a taxi honked twice and gave up. A couple laughed on the sidewalk. A single church bell rang far off in the distance. 5 nights ago she had been terrified. 5 nights ago she had been alone. 5 nights ago she had walked into this building with rent money on her mind and a phone call from her uncle burning a hole in her pocket. She turned back to Marcus. You know what's funny? Tell me. When I tripped over that rope, I thought my life was ending. And now? Now I think that rope was the best thing that ever happened to me. She reached across the table. She picked up the paper. She folded it in half. She folded it in half again. She tucked it carefully into the small pocket of her emerald dress, right over her heart. Yes to the first offer, she said. Yes to the second. Yes to Sunday supper at my aunt's. Yes to teaching Pepper to tolerate more visitors. Yes to whatever pace we set. Yes to all of it. Marcus let out a breath he had been holding since the moment she walked onto the roof. He stood up. He came around the table. He held out his hand. She stood up. She took it. He drew her gently into his arms, and for one long moment they simply stood there on that rooftop above a city that had once frightened her, holding on to each other under a sky full of soft light. Miss Miller, he said quietly against her hair. Yes? Try not to trip on the way down the stairs. She laughed into his shoulder. No promises. Somewhere below them, the copper bells above a small Brooklyn bakery were quiet for the night. The oven was cold. Uncle Ray was asleep with a bookkeeping manual open on his chest. Aunt Carmen was already planning Sunday's menu, and on a rooftop in Manhattan, a curvy girl in an emerald dress rested her cheek against the shoulder of the coldest man in the city and felt, for the first time in a very long life, entirely warm. The city glittered on. They stayed a long time.